This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Phil Thomas, the CEO of AIS Resources, is here today to talk us through the company's second lithium project in Argentina, the Pocitos lithium project. So, hello Phil, how are you doing today?
Mark, I'm wonderful.
Good, thank you very much for joining us. So this is of course the second project that you have in Argentina, lithium as well, Salar based I believe as well, is it?
Yes, it is, yeah. This is Inkahasi was the first one that we joint ventured with Spey Resources, and this is the second one, Pocitos, which is Tenements 1 and 2, which we've joint ventured with Spey Resources, code SPEY on the Canadian Stock Exchange.
Excellent. Okay, so can you take us through it and then tell us a bit about the project and what stage you're at with it?
Absolutely, be delighted to do that. So if we go through the presentation, we're looking at what we call a very rugose surface here in the foreground, and it's because the salt actually comes up, crystallizes, and you get capillary movement of salt coming up to the top, and also lithium, but mostly salt. Of course, if it rains, which is very, very rare, it gets washed out. But generally speaking, these are big salt flats, and the Spanish word for salt flat is salar. So that's why we say salar. When I first started in this business in 2003, they said, oh, it's a salar. And I was looking up granites and stuff, and very quickly realised that I was on the wrong horse. They were talking Spanish. So, but for people who don't know, it's quite a strange word. The Pocitos 1 and Pocitos 2 transactions, I've got a typo there, basically is set out as follows. So they paid us $200,000 for Pocitos 1 and Pocitos 2, $100,000 each, and they paid us 2.5 million Spey shares, which are trading at about 35 cents at the moment, so about 1.3 million. Why 1.3 million Canadian? Because we spent about 1.8 million US drilling on the project, doing sampling and doing geophysics, which I'll take you through fairly shortly. So they can purchase the 1,300 hectares for $1,200 US a hectare, which is around about 1.5 million. We get a 15% royalty on sales of lithium carbonate as well, and we'll talk about the lithium carbonate price in a minute. We drilled 2 holes down to 400 metres and produced brines with a lithium range of 125 to 175 ppm. We did a very comprehensive surface sampling exercise. We basically got a backhoe and dug down to 5 metres and sampled the pits twice. And we also did a lot of just general surface sampling down to 0.5 metre. But it was a very comprehensive program so that we could see what the changes were in surface lithium, which really doesn't tell you what's down at 400 metres, but it gives you an idea of what's been coming up onto the surface. The Transient Electromagnetic Geophysics was done, and we did 7 lines, and we'll go through those quickly. But it was done to define aquifers which display a low resistivity, and that's how we know it's an aquifer, and it differentiates between the sand units and the clay units. The environmental impact permit is up to date, and its next revision is February 2023. So they can explore as much as they like. And in fact, the drill team from Amaru will be available in 4 weeks. They're currently drilling for Spey in Inkahasi, and they'll be moving to Pocitos in about 4 weeks to start drilling there. And we've positioned the 4 drill holes.
Okay.
So if we move on to the next slide, you can see here, it's hard to see, but 1 and 2 are the 2 holes that we drilled. And this is hole 1 and this is hole 2. And then hole 3 and hole 4 have been located just down a little bit and to the edge. And there was some surface sampling done in here. We also own 5 and 6, and Pocitos 7 and 9, 7 and 9 here, which is about 4 kilometres from there and 4 kilometres from there. And so we've done the soil, the geophysics profiles and sampling here, and come up with some good results. I'll just show you the pressure of the rig when it hit 400 metres. You can see there the water pressure coming up from 400 metres, and the boys had to basically put a rod over the top and plug that, and likewise so that was hole one, and that was coming out at about 100,000 litres a minute from, so it was taking about 3 minutes for the water to come up from 400 metres down, or a bit less than that, and squirting out the top. And that went for 5.5 hours. The average lithium content in that was around about 150 ppm, but it had high magnesium. And I'll talk to high magnesium in a minute. But basically, this was a very, very successful hole. So then in the middle of the night when I was sleeping, the field geologist rang me and said, "Phil, we've done it again. You've got 2 out of 2. So here's the hole in the middle of the night. You can see the wind howling through there and the water coming out. Mm-hmm. That was about 75,000 litres a minute. So both the water pressure here is massive from the mountains around it. There's 3 volcanoes to the north. Rincon Salar is over the hill, and Cachari and Azario is over the other hill. So it's in a perfect area for these salt lake basins. And this is, Pocitos is quite a big basin, goes all the way down the bottom here.
Mm-hmm. So the water coming up is from an aquifer?
Yeah, that's right. It's gone straight into the sandstone aquifer. It had about a 35-40% porosity, and you can see what happened.
Yeah.
It comes like crazy. So if we have a look at Pocitos 1 and 2, we did 4 lines. I think I've jumped a slide. Yes, I did. So here's Pocitos 1 and 2, and we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So profile 1 is here, profile 1, and you can see these dark red lines here. And have a look at the scale on the side here. So it says 1 ohm per metre and then 0.1 of an ohm per metre. So what we're trying to do is target this sandstone body here, which has got low resistivity. And salt water has a resistivity of 0.026, and lithium, potassium, brines have 0.015. So we know right on the bottom of the scale, and that's a log scale, so it's sitting in there. Anything with that colour is not salt water. It's not sodium chloride. It's got lithium in it, and possibly lithium chloride ions in it. So we can see here a great big sort of syncline, anticline shape, and we suspect that there's been some ebbing and flowing where my mouse was just then as the delta filled up with sand. So we put a drill hole straight down there, and that was the first drill hole that you saw. The second one, the aquifer, which is over here, so that's profile 1, and then we're going down for profile 2. So we're looking this way now, so we're looking side on through here. Here you can see a substantial aquifer. So from the north to the south, going from here to here, we've got a big aquifer. So it was a bit of a no-brainer to drill towards the top bit there. This is just another picture of the Salar, looking over, not this side, but looking over this side of the Salar, and it just sort of goes onto a plateau, and then there's a whole bunch of volcanic cones and bits and pieces here.
Okay.
So if we go to the next one, what's happened here? Oops. So if we go to profile 3, you can see there a bit deeper, but very, very strong aquifer there, and another one coming through here, which is coming out, and profile 4, strong aquifer coming through here, another fairly porous body, a clay body coming through here in the green, another very thin layer at the top, and that's basically soils sitting there. So from a general perspective, I'll just move this out of the road over to here. As a general perspective, you can see here 1 and 2, and there's 7, and the road from the Pocitos village comes across. This was optioned by Argosy Minerals a while ago, but they didn't do anything. They let it go and decided to develop Rincon, which they just put a 2,000-tonne plant in. But you can see basically the geology and the road. There's a gas pipeline coming along this road here that was put in, and there's another road there, and then this road in here, or actually you can't quite see it, but it goes over to Chile, and then down to Antofagasta.
Okay.
So here's the sampling, which has been quite interesting in that we can see what's happening in the top 6 metres. So here's pit 1, pit 2, drill hole 1, drill hole 2. Here's the geophysics line that we were looking at before. Here's all the sampling points, and you can see pit 10, which is right here. And so Spey will be drilling there and there on the geophysics, from the geophysics. But if we have a look at pit 10, you can see here that it got 181 milligrams per litre, 180 ppm of lithium, which is pretty good for surface. Calcium is okay. Magnesium is about 3-to-1, so that's excellent. Boron is okay. Lots of salt, as we'd expect. Low potassium, barium and strontium is quite small. So this was a great result for surface sampling, and so we're pretty excited about drilling. So let me go back to the next slide. So that's the drillers there. It's HQ width and lots of clay. They use a special type of drill to get through that. And then we send the drill core off in these containers to core laboratories in Texas, and they calculate what the porosity is. So we've got some idea of how fast the water flows in. But in this sampling pit here, you can see that's about 1.5 meters, and it goes down to about 3 meters. It takes about 1 hour to fill up with brine. So the water pressure is massive, absolutely massive. So we'll go on to the next slide. I'm the project leader. We have Rosario, our country manager. David Carabandi is our senior geologist now. We've just hired 2 other geologists as well. And Dr. Rodrigo Castaneda is our lawyer. So that's basically the exploration project management team for Spey. Dr. Sorrentino is our chief chemical engineer, and he basically drives the chemistry in terms of production of lithium carbonate and lithium chloride. The big news is the lithium prices have jumped from about $8,000 a tonne to $14,333 last week. And you can see here in dollars per kilo for lithium carbonate for China, Japan and Korea on a CIF basis, so in other words delivered into China, it's $14,333 per tonne. And the spot price for the domestic market in yuan per tonne is a little bit cheaper, but not far away. So there's been an enormous development and that was from Fast Markets. So there's been an enormous jump in the price, and it looks like it's being sustained for the last month. And that's an interesting development because it means that all the gigafactories are actually buying lithium carbonate to make their batteries. If we go onto the EcoSolve process, the reason why, if we go back to the analysis slide, if you have a look at this value down here for magnesium, it's 487 over 181, so about 2.5, 3 to 1. That's fine for a normal process, but when we drilled these holes here, we got very high levels of magnesium, 10 to 1 to 15 to 1. So we weren't prepared to take the risk of having this problem of high magnesium, because it makes it about $1,500 a tonne just to get rid of the magnesium. We didn't want to be uncompetitive.
Okay.
So we got rid of the tenements and just kept the option until such time as we found a technology which could manage that magnesium, and it's the EcoSolve process. So the EcoSolve process has actually taken some of the brine from Inca Hussey, and they've actually produced lithium carbonate last week. And I think Spey Resources put out a press release on that. So the EcoSolve process, which is a solvent extraction-based process, solves the magnesium problem, and it'll manage up to 100 times magnesium to lithium ratio, and it will also manage very, very low concentrations. So we just finished a small batch in the pilot plant at the University of Melbourne, and only had 40 ppm, and we're still able to produce it, and we still recovered 95% of the solvent. And the really interesting thing, which is the development of this new process, is that there's actually no solvent trace in the lithium chloride before it becomes lithium carbonate. That's a big issue, and that's been one of the problems in the past. And the good thing is it has a minimal use of water. All the brines are set back. So it's a small footprint, virtually no usage of water. It's reasonable in terms of pilot plant size. We can tell whether we've got fresh water or old water by looking at the oxygen-14 isotope. If there's no oxygen-14 sitting in there, when we can measure the half-life of oxygen-14. If it's quite new, then we know it's probably fresh water. If it's old, then we know it's brine. But pretty quickly, the water table in these salt areas gets pretty much polluted with salt, and nothing much grows.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few llamas and a couple of other small llamas running around, but that's about it.
Okay.
And there's absolutely no one around. Tola Grande is about 90 kilometres away, and Pocitos village has about 25 people in it.
Okay.
About 10 minutes away. So if we have a quick look there, you can see the salt pan that is at Salinas Grandes in the middle there, and that's how they make salt. And if we go to the EcoSolve process, this basically runs it through. I mean, it's meaningless to most people, but what it basically is a continuous process, 4 stages, and the calcium and magnesium is removed, and then lithium is produced as the solution goes through, and then it gets acid washed, gets regenerated again, and the process goes around again, and you start again. So it's proven. You know, there's been lots and lots of solvent extraction in uranium, copper, copper oxide, and so forth. So it's not new technology. There were some serious issues with applying to lithium brines, and 3 years of hard work, and we solved that problem. Just an interesting thing on gigafactories, and they're kind of letting it, but I thought the slide on the bottom right-hand corner was interesting, that you need 200 kilograms of lithium to produce a battery bus. You need something like 40 to 80 to do a hybrid. And motorcycles are quite interesting. You only need half a kilo for a motorcycle battery, but when you think that there's 90,000 small electric vehicles in India, and they're growing at a phenomenal rate, it's quite interesting, the consumption, and that's why the gigafactories are working flat out to produce batteries that will be used by all these different applications.
Mm-hmm.
That's the presentation for today. if anybody's got any questions, they can use one of my several emails or give me a phone call. And that's the project.
Okay. So that EcoSolve process then, that's brand new.
Yeah, it's kind of brand new, but it's not. It was developed about 3 years ago, but there were some very significant issues with it. And one of the issues was the efficacy, that is, getting the organic solvent through the salt water and covering 99.99% of the salt water. Because if you only covered 80% of the salt water, then clearly you would leave 20% behind. So we solved that problem using a dual or actually three different strategies. And once we solved that problem, we were away. So we built a small pilot plant and tested it and worked well. Then we built a bigger one, and that worked particularly well in conjunction with Melbourne University. And we used their chemical engineering division, their expertise, particularly Catherine Munford, to solve some of the other issues that came up. And she's been doing all the development work with Dr. Sorrentino.
Okay. So am I right in understanding then that the lithium is dissolved within the brine water, the aquifers that are then coming to surface that we saw earlier?
Yeah, it's already in solution. So it comes out of that well, goes into a settling tank because there's bits of salt and dirt and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it gets strained and gets put into some silos, and then it goes through the various processes you saw there. But the solvent extraction process, the solvent gets pumped into the water and gets moved around, and then it's a bit like having pieces of honey which are not dissolving in very cold water, and you put a stick in, and you can actually attract all the honey onto the stick, because it'll actually stick to it, even though they're both fluids. The analogy can be used for solvent exchange, where you have a sticky solvent, and it basically selects the lithium after you've cleaned out the calcium and magnesium. So it's a very efficient way, and that's one of the reasons why it has a 97% recovery, because the recovery rate in the past has been sort of 50% if you do ponds, and 75% if you use ion exchange or absorption or combinations, and solvent extraction in a raw sense doesn't really give you a good result. You have to use other methods as well to manage it. Whereas this one is probably the only about to be commercialised process for taking out direct lithium extraction. And Spey Resources have signed a contract with EcoSolve to build a plant, a 10,000 tonne plant, probably built in Pocitos, and then they'll truck concentrated brine from Inkahasi to Pocitos. That's the game plan at the moment.
Okay, and when you've hit the aquifer, then you can, obviously the videos there showed all the water under pressure coming up. Is it a little bit like oil exploration? Do you have to sort of cap the well, so to speak, and then control it?
In the first one, yes, we had to cap it, and there's a capping device that sits on the top of the rig. We didn't have it on the first rig. We certainly had it on the second rig because we weren't expecting the force of the water, the head pressure to be so high. Yeah, so that created a bit of drama. But we thought, we'll just let it go for 5.5, 6 hours. It'll be fine. And when we came back, it was still going.
Right.
So
okay.
It was a bit of a shock.
Yeah. Okay. And then, but once the pressure's died down, you then pump it out. Do you? Was that the idea?
Well, no, you don't really need to pump it out. It has its own head pressure, so you basically put a throttle on it and run it into the tanks and run the solvent exchange through it and produce the lithium and shoot the water back out in a pipe about 4 kilometres away and put it back into the Salar.
Right. Okay.
And all it is the same water that came up, except that it's going down into the salt base and diluting the salt.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then will you be building on site these treatment plants then to extract the lithium?
No, there's a block of land on the edge of Pocitos 1 that will be more solid, because you do get the occasional earthquake going through there, and salt tends to shake like jelly when an earthquake goes through, because you're in a fairly volatile area.
Mm-hmm.
We could put it on there and use some building technology, but because the footprint is so small and PVC is so cheap, it's easier just to pipe the brine across to the plant.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and it's only maybe 500 meters. It's not a long distance.
Yeah. Okay. And what about the other elements then? Is there any use for them commercially, or is it really just the lithium that you're after?
Yeah, we spent about 5 years from 2003 to 2008 trying to figure that out, and we thought we can produce potassium. But when we did the numbers and given the price, and potassium chloride, they call it SOP, is possibly going from $300 a tonne to nearly $1,000 a tonne. But typically, just about when you're doing your feasibility study, it goes back to 300. So the market for potassium sulfate, potassium chloride tends to move around a bit, but taking it from brines is quite a difficult exercise unless you have a particular solvent exchange to take out the potassium. Magnesium sulfate, you can make Epsom salts, but there's cheaper ways to do it. And calcium, you can make calcium sulfate, but the market for those sort of things is pretty small.
Okay. So what are the next steps then on this project? Did you say that once the drilling is completed at Inca Huasi, they will move to Pocitos?
Correct, yeah. They'll go to Pocitos in about 4 weeks. They've got a 4-week program there of 920 metres at Inca Huasi, and then they'll move over to Pocitos, put that hole 3 and 4 down, basically put a hole down near hole number 2, and so we'll have 5 holes in the updated 43-101, and then 3 of those holes will get a 5.5-inch hole production well put down with suitable capping and stuff, and then we'll start the environmental plan. The environmental plan will actually start earlier than that, but we'll be doing the environmental impact statement, and that takes about 6 months, because you've got to check the air, the water, the soils, the noise, etc. And then once we've done that, then we'll apply for a mining license and take those production wells and hook them up to some PVC piping and start building the plant.
Wow. Okay. So it's fairly advanced then.
Yeah, it is, and it's advanced because AIS Resources in 2017-18 spent a lot of time and effort to explore it properly, and obviously we got from the videos, we got pay dirt on both holes, so we're expecting similar results on 3 and 4, and basically try and identify where the brine is concentrating, in which one of those aquifers, because there's 3 or 4, from maybe 250 metres down to 400 metres, we were getting good brine in the packer test machine that attaches to the drill rig, but the highest flow rate came from 350 to 400 metres.
Okay. Excellent. Well, good. So the next stage really, you've got, when you get the drilling done, you're then going to do the EIA, and then you'll be looking to apply for the mining license, but you will have some production wells already in place.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we use the same holes as exploration holes.
Okay.
Once we've sort of got to the next stage of the EIA, we'll put down another 7 or 8 holes just to monitor the water level and the brine flow and what impact it's having, if any, just to make sure, and it helps with advanced sampling.
And Inca Huasi as well, would that be the same, was that earlier stage, or are you a similar stage with that project?
No, Inca Huasi is having its maiden drill program now.
Yeah.
Although we know Gangfeng have put some holes down and got good results. We know Pepinini put some drill holes down and got good results. We know Orocobre put some holes down, I think 1 or 2. So we know that around the Salar it's been fairly high, and we've been able to sample 150 ppm from the surface, and there are some fairly attractive aquifers in the geophysics. So we're going to basically put drill holes down those aquifers and have a look at the clays and sand and see what the porosity looks like and what the grades are. And if it comes up, it only needs to come up over 150 ppm. It's commercially viable.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you very much, Phil Thomas, for talking to us there about the Pocitos lithium project. And yeah, I'm sure we can catch up again in a few months' time as the drilling is being completed and you start the environmental impact assessment.
I look forward to that, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.